Have you ever heard of the Black-Eyed Children? Have you had an experience with them? I have a story from an anonymous Discord member. He experienced the Black-Eyed Children firsthand. But before we dive into that, let's take a look at a little backstory on exactly who the Black-Eyed Children are. Also, if you have a story that you want to be told, or just want a nice place to talk about the paranormal, join the Dark Cabin Theories Discord. Link is in the description below. So the first official appearance of the Black-Eyed Children is reported in Abilene, Texas in 1996. A man named Brian Bethel was sitting in his car when he noticed two children approaching his vehicle. He described them as being about 9 to 12 years old. He also noted that they were wearing sweatshirts with hoodies that partially covered up their faces. As the children approached his vehicle, he would ask them if they needed any help. They told Brian that they needed a ride to their mother's house so they could get money to go see a movie. Before Brian could say anything, the children quickly mentioned that they were only children and had no weapons, in a very monotone voice. Brian sensed something was very wrong. Brian would also look into their eyes and see that their eyes were completely black. Brian would feel uneasy, and he would make up an excuse telling them that the movie had already started and that they were going to miss it. Well, they would be more adamant about getting a ride from him. Brian would eventually just tell them flat out no. That's when the children would start banging on his car. So that is the first official reporting of the Black-Eyed Children, and that dates back to 1996. But there are similar reports of them dating all the way back to the 1600s. Basically, long story short, they're kids that range from ages 6 to 16, coming up to people's cars, knocking on their doors, etc. Also, they pretend to be hitchhikers or beggars. A kind of brief description that kind of relays to every story is they have completely black eyes, no facial expressions, and speak very monotonally. And also, they're very adamant about getting inside of whatever place you're in, whether that be your house, your car, wherever you may be. Now, my question is, what happens if you do let them in? I found very few stories on what happens when you let them in. Some theories say that they're children of the devil, and others say they're aliens. But what they all conclude is that letting them in leads to bizarre or horrible happenings. One story I found is of this woman. She let them in. They sat on her couch for a few minutes. Very quiet, very still, no facial expressions. Anytime she would ask them questions, they really wouldn't react. That went on for about a few minutes. Then they got up and just left. They would vanish. The very next day, she found that her cat had passed away. And the next week, her husband would be diagnosed with a terminal illness. Now, how credible this is, I'm unsure. Most of the stories I find are of people not letting the children in at all. So that leads us to our anonymous Discord member's story. Also, if you're enjoying our channel, don't forget to like and subscribe. Also, comment your encounters with the Black-Eyed Children down below. So our Discord member, we'll call him Andrew. It was the summer of 2020. It's about 7:30 p.m. Andrew was sitting in the ER parking lot. His father has kidney disease and needed to go to the ER for some complications. Now, with COVID-19 in full swing, Andrew was not allowed to be in the ER with his father, so he had to wait outside. He was sitting in his car for about 3 hours just listening to music, watching some videos on YouTube, and he suddenly saw two children walking. They were walking towards the woods. Now, this hospital is in a small town, and the hospital sits on the outskirts of town. The closest housing additions are about 2 miles away. Now, why would the children also be walking towards the woods? That would confuse Andrew. He would drive over to the children. He says they're about 6 to 7 years old. One's a boy, one's a girl. Now, after approaching them, he asked them if they needed help, and the children told him that they needed a ride to their mother's house. Now, Andrew noticed something off about them immediately. He said the way they spoke was abnormal, and they didn't have body language or facial expressions. Andrew asked them where their mom's house was. One of the children would point straight into the woods, and that is when Andrew would make eye contact with the children. Andrew noticed the black eyes, and it freaked him out. It freaked him out so bad that he immediately drove away. As he sped away, he would look back into his rearview mirror and see the children walking into the woods. He would immediately call his father. His father would tell hospital security that some children were wandering in the woods. Now, hospital security would call the police. They came out, did a little investigation. There was no missing children reported that day, and no sight of them anywhere near the hospital. So they would leave. Now, this is a rather interesting story. It changes a little bit from what you mostly get. Most people engage with the black-eyed children a little bit further. But Andrew immediately drove away. Now, what would you have done in that situation? Are black-eyed children real? Comment your opinion down below. I also wonder if they have any correlation to shadow figures. But that's a topic for another day. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.